Welcome back to Domestic Dad, Cleaning Up the Mess. Today, I'm thrilled to have Gary Kroeger as my guest. Gary is an actor, Saturday Night Live comedian, politician, restaurateur. He's done it all. Our friendship began over a decade ago when we worked together at an advertising agency. He was a creative director, and I was a young, eager to learn it all account executive. Our brainstorming sessions on messaging and connecting with people forged a strong bond between us. And Gary would always have some incredibly hilarious story to tell about the life that he's lived. Gary's big personality and immense charisma are complemented by a warm, genuine nature that I've always admired. As a father to two incredible young men, his journey includes navigating parenting, divorce, and finding happiness in remarriage. In this episode, we dive into these experiences and the challenges that he's faced beneath the surface. So grab a mop, because today we're cleaning up the mess. Has life gotten off track? Are you looking for some inspiration to be a better dad? People say all the time, I'd die for my kids. Okay, but would you live for them? Actually live? Get yourself healthy? Make better choices? Eliminate distractions? Would you lead them more intentionally? Would you get sober? Take better care of yourself, physically and mentally. You'd only have to die once. Your kids don't need you to die for them. They need you to live. Have you thought about getting sober, but you just didn't know where to start? If so, welcome to the Domestic Dad Podcast, your go-to destination for candid discussions on journeys into sobriety, parenting, and personal growth. I'm Nick Barnett, founder of the Domestic Dad Project. I've been a dad since I was 18 years old. I'm also a trauma survivor, an alcoholic, divorced, happily remarried, hardworking, humbled by life, domestic dad. On this podcast, you'll find interviews with people who have walked that path, including myself, coaches, mentors, and pastors who can help guide you on your journey. You're going to need resources and inspiration. You can find that here. This is the community for you to lean into, so you can start living life as a domestic dad. So let's grab a mop and start cleaning up the mess. Coming in just like no preconceived notions or anything.
Dude, I live my life spontaneously. In other words, it's all an improvisation. Any reason to not be transparent and talk honestly means you're covering something up. If you're covering something up, you're hurting yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm an open book. I never worry about what's going to be asked. Everything can be navigated when you're telling the truth.
That's the best, some of the best advice I've ever heard, maybe in my life. Like, don't cover it up.
Don't cover it up. If you're suppressing something, it will come to fruition in a bad way.
Yeah.
It'll be a plant with some rotted roots.
Yeah.
And I learned this over the course of a lifetime because I was an actor. I mean, I was covering everything up, how I felt, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's part of the journey we may talk about a little bit, but it's uncovering those things and trusting the universe enough to know that you develop a protection, not a shield, but a protection because you were vulnerable, honest.
First of all, Gary Kroeger.
Oh, yeah. Kroeger.
Yeah.
People don't always remember the E. It's an adaptation of a German umlaut, Kroeger, but at Ellis Island, we became Kroeger with an E.
Love it. Dude, you are you I don't know if I've ever told you this, but early in my career, you were a mentor. You were the creative director at the agency that I worked for, and you had tribal knowledge that was very beneficial to me.
Okay.
Moving forward in my career. And I admired you from afar, and yeah. So
well, that's awfully kind to say. I mean, I'd like to think that's true. You know, I'm 67 years old. When I met you for the first time, I was probably, how many years ago was this? 12 years ago?
Yeah, 12, 15 years ago.
Oh, do the math, 55 years old. So I'd had some life experience up to that point.
Yeah.
You know, I have very little patience for BS.
Yeah.
In other words, I've developed, and anyone can develop, a sensor to which you can tell if somebody's being authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt that very often in the process of how we worked and in the business of advertising, it was very inauthentic a lot.
Yeah.
We'd say things that aren't really true under the guise that this is advertising, as you heighten what we are. We're the best. We're family, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, if that's not true, you shouldn't say it. And so I remember having conversations with you about how do we create an authentic message that people are really going to resonate, that busts through all the garbage, all the white noise that we know consumers are consumed with. If I may quote a philosopher, I believe it would be Socrates, is the life that's examined. So we're in a constant state, we have to be, of looking at ourselves, examining our motives. Now, the less clutter that we can create, I didn't expect to sit down with a cup of coffee and be philosophical, but this is stuff that I think about.
Yeah.
The less clutter that we have in the way of our true objective, the closer and the more true we're going to be toward getting to that objective.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen. And I think that all translates in fatherhood.
Oh, absolutely.
And it is so important to live your life that way because your children will model you. And when they see that,
I was hoping you'd go down this avenue.
Yeah.
And I knew you would.
Yeah. Well,
that's the purpose of the show.
Right.
I'd really like to go down this road.
Yeah. Before we go there, can I just find out where Gary came from?
Like in life, born into a family?
Yeah. Like what was childhood like for you, man?
Well, that's interesting because what's always interesting, no matter who you're talking to, childhood is going to be interesting. I had an idyllic childhood. I grew up in Cedar Falls. I was born in Waterloo, grew up in Cedar Falls. My parents were together. They were, I had two brothers, a neighborhood. And in the 60s and the 70s, it was a different world. And I don't want to get political at all.
Yeah.
But it was a war because there were plenty of things wrong with the world. We weren't where we need to be, and we still aren't with civil rights and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
But as a child here in the Midwest, I didn't have to lock up my bike. We didn't lock the front door. There was a freedom of living. And now we're inundated with so much and trappings and too much information. We all got it from the same source back then. Walter Cronkite or Chet Huntley, basically.
Yeah.
Huntley Brinkley, right? We all got our information from the same sources. So life was a little less, the thinking process to lead to the truth was easier. And so I grew up in a household of just loving parents. I knew my parents would be home when I got home from school. I know they'd show up at the school play. Every childhood has drama. You fall in love for the first time. You're a little skinny guy, and the captain of the football team is going out with the girl that you wish. Every life has drama and a little bit of trauma. But I was given the gift of parents. Look, I became an actor coming out of Cedar Falls. Nobody does that, and mom and dad go, sounds great. But my parents went, well, if that's what the kid wants to do, let's do everything we can to facilitate his dreams.
Yeah.
Now, to your point of modeling parenthood, that's what I've modeled myself as a parent after my parents. My job is not to give them anything, except I owe them safety, but it's to do everything I can with every corpuscle, every atom in my body to facilitate their best dreams, their best wishes for themselves. I'll be a greeter at Walmart if I have to, Nick, if that's what it takes to get my kid to go to the school that he wants to go to because it has the best program. And when you realize that, you fulfill your best occupation. You know this because you're smiling. The best occupation we can have is to be a parent.
Yeah.
Now, lots of people out there choose not to. I have a brother that chose not to have children. Fine. There can be moral reasons, personal reasons, all sorts of reasons to not be a parent. But if you do find yourself in this reality, embrace it as the greatest job that has been gifted to you.
Yeah, because it's more important than you realize. A lot of times I think back to early on in my parent. I became a parent when I was 18 years old.
I know you did.
So that's like, you
were still trying to figure out who you were.
Exactly. So there was a lot of selfishness there and a lot of misses in terms of parenting at that point in my life. But as life goes on, you become a parent again. And now now you've got 2 kids and now you've got 3 kids and you're like, man, there's so much more opportunity to pour in because what comes back around is going to be everything.
I watched this transformation in you.
Yeah.
Again, I'm a lot older than you are. If I was a mentor, I am proud. But you were a puppy in a way. You were partying too much or drinking too much or whatever. I watched you come to fruition with Gabby, with Jamie, and to Ari.
Yeah.
Because you became a better father when you realized that all of those other things are distractions keeping me from examining myself.
Right.
And I'm sure you want to talk about drinking.
In the moment, I felt like I was a normal drinker. I thought that, the capacity at which I was drinking was totally fine and I could keep it in the pocket. And it wasn't until later on that that just got way out of hand, and it happened so fast. It just became a huge problem very quickly. I got sick. There was all kinds of stuff that happened, and I was no longer present as a father. I fell into a pit, man. It was like I was cruising along. I was trying to be a dad. I was making money. I was being myself. I was all about me. I did not have as strong of a faith at that point in my life, but everything that was happening was because I did it, right?
Right. Well, let me tell you, this world nurtures that affliction. It nurtures, it trains you right out of high school, right out of college. Go for it, Nick. It's about you. Be the head of the class, be the life of the party.
Yeah.
Everything you're literally trained to be selfish. It's really hard to break that mold and to expand yourself. I would guess that Gabby in your life was the catalyst.
Yeah, 100%. Gabby, the kids, and God were what took me.
How did you find the moment to go, hey, I need to get serious? Was it going to church? Was it Gabby saying, I've had enough? Or, I don't mean to get personal.
No, you're fine.
But there's a moment when you go, wait a second, tomorrow has to look different than every day in my past.
Yeah, that happened on May 17th, so 17th or 18th. Yeah, I know the day that it happened. Yeah, because there was an intervention of sorts. It was like, hey, man, if you don't get sober, you're going to die. And look at the legacy that you're going to leave at this point. Oh, you did this? Great. But how much more could you do?
Yeah.
How much more of a father could you be? If you were just, and this was internal dialogue, right? This was all internal stuff. My wife had hinted at it. My mother had hinted at it. My kids had hinted at it, right? But nobody had that absolute dialogue with me until I sat down and did it with myself, right? How much is this the legacy that you want to leave for yourself? No, man.
Right.
No. Change that. Whatever you got to do to change that trajectory, do it now. And that's what I did.
That's the way you do it. And it's the hardest thing to convince people. I have a lot of friends, Nick, some of them, who are in trouble, and they're in trouble. They're not making their lives work. They aren't paying their bills. They're doing drugs. It's not working. And they look to me and go, Kroeger, you lead a good life. You're productive. You're industrious. Your wife loves you. Your children love you. Can you help me out? And I go, only if you listen. And only if you believe what I'm saying. I can't give you a magic pill to turn this around. You need to decide today that those habits are over, not just a little bit, over. And tomorrow when the sun comes up, you need to sign a lease, a contract with yourself that says you started over. You got to do it.
Yeah.
But it's hard. I have friends that are still struggling and they know that my heart breaks for them. They know that I'm an empath, that I'm compassionate. And sometimes
you are that.
Well, sometimes I help them and I probably shouldn't because I'm enabling them.
Yeah.
It's really hard. It's like I work for homeless healthcare in Los Angeles. The first thing they teach you is don't give money at the off-ramp. I know you want to because you're compassionate and they're having a really bad day. But that $1, that $5 is creating a system which makes that viable.
Okay.
Give your money and your time to healthcare, to programs, to people that are going to help them get the mental and the physical health rehabilitation that they need, to line them up toward a job perhaps, or clean clothes, or whatever it takes, helped really create. Because that dollar, even though, Nick, the majority of that money probably goes to food, some of it doesn't. Some of it goes to night train. Some of it goes down the hatch to anesthetize. And we have to be compassionate to that, because if you're living outside, you'll probably want to anesthetize. Yeah. But are you helping them? Maybe your dollar was the dollar they needed, and they bought the wine that led to the overdose, and they fell asleep and died in the snow.
Yeah.
And I tell it like that because that happened last year. Not from me, but from someone that I worked with the homeless. So we need to facilitate the cycle of help, honest to God, hands-on help, rather than to anesthetize.
Yeah.
I got a little preachy there, but it's all related, because I know you can relate. You were anesthetizing.
Okay, so I'd never heard that word used in that way before, but it's so perfect that you say, like, the way that you use that, because you're just trying to, like, move to the next phase. You're just trying to, okay, like, I'm gonna black out, and get to the next, like, forget this day, get me to the next one where I can try to move on again.
Right. But
this one I messed up. Let me anesthetize.
But what happens is the pattern of anesthetization or whatever. It just replicates. It repeats and it repeats and it repeats. You want that out. You want that get out of jail free card. And if you're passed out on the couch, you got out of jail free.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's good.
But we're here to talk about breaking through that.
Yeah. Is that what you want to get into?
Well, I do. I mean, because I watched the show, and it's great. And because you're talking about real stuff. This is not a podcast for just, like, funny stories.
Yeah.
I mean, if you wanted to do that, I can give you a million funny stories. But I like this because, and I watched this happen for you, and I watched you develop Domestic Dad and everything. And I've been very proud of you for making something that could have been dark. You turned your life around, and now you didn't just say, "Hey, I'm great." You're actually creating a product.
Yeah.
And a message.
The whole point of doing Domestic Dad was to make sober cool again.
Yeah.
Make being a good dad
cool again.
Like cool. And I don't know that it ever got uncool, but I think from my window, right? Like, from what I'm looking at, partying got way cooler than being a dad at some point in my life. Just things that, how do I say this? Things that were not centered around growing my children into good people and empowering them and showing them a good model as to what a good man, and I have 3 sons, as to what a good man looks like, became more important to me out of my selfishness than what that was. And that, I mean, it breaks my heart that it took me so long to figure that out.
It didn't. It didn't. You're still a young man, and you've been doing this for a few years now. It took you a while, and you didn't know when it would end, so it feels like it was a long time because you didn't have an end in sight. But when you had this metamorphosis, you really had it at a relatively young age, Nick. I mean, I don't think you need to give yourself a break because you're not looking for that. But if you are being rough on yourself in that respect, like you wasted some years, you didn't. It took you this journey to get there. Yeah. And you're relatively lucky that you got there. You know, your skin's still tight. You know, you don't have as much gray in your beard as I do. Can I tell you a story that I may have never told anybody, but I'm actually this outside of my wife.
Yeah.
I feel very comfortable in this, and it's important. You know, I had lived a life of, I've been married 3 times. I'm married. My wife now is my last wife, but it's my 3rd time. I had 2 kids with my previous wife that I moved back to Iowa for and worked at Mudd. I doubt I was still married when I met you, but I came back here. What happened for me is I was leading a life of an actor, and I had some success, but hills and valleys and all sorts of pressures. And then I had a son. My son, Christopher, is now 25. As soon as he was born, all of my life, which had been built around building the product of Gary the actor, Gary the writer, Gary the producer, I was my own product, but that's a very self-centered occupation. So, and I lived in LA for that. I put up with bad traffic and bad air and bad schools because I needed to be there. But when my son was born, I had the aha going, it isn't about me anymore. This little helpless baby in swaddling clothes, this is my responsibility. So I did the right thing, and I left Hollywood, and we came to Iowa, and Jim Mudd couldn't have been nicer to me. He gave me the job of my dreams. But for whatever reasons, perhaps I hadn't developed fully yet who I am or what I understand. My marriage didn't work out. And we had our second son, Alexander, who'll be 20 in August. So this is 20 years ago. My marriage fell apart, and I was devastated. Devastated. All I'd ever known was how to make things work, spinning plates, being the fun, happy guy, always having an idea, being the laugh. I wasn't drinking, but I was addicted to the endorphins of ideas and, oh, Kroeger's so funny and all this stuff. So maybe I wasn't paying attention to the important things. So suddenly I was divorced and had nothing. Mm-hmm. And this is going to be hard to say. I thought of suicide. And maybe this is the guy you remember being, oh, Kroeger, da, 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 da. When I would lose my kids for the week and only see them on every other weekend or 3 weeks in the summer.
God, the week in between.
It tore me apart. And I sat down in the garage. I turned on the car, and I thought to myself, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. What a story in the Courier this would be. How did this happen? We thought he was so happy. I mean, blah, 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 blah. But I thought about, okay, this is what people do. This is what people do. All I have to do now is close the garage door, and I'll fall asleep. Da, 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 da. This is it. And I don't want this to sound like hyperbole or like I'm being overly dramatic, but the pain in my life and missing my boys was overwhelming. It was overwhelming. There's nothing worse, Nick, than having Christmas and then you have to take the kids back to the other parent and you come home and the wrapping paper is still there and the half-drunk eggnog. And I would sit on the couch and just weep. And I didn't want that pain anymore. And it had been so long that I'd been feeling that I thought, maybe people will say nice things. The image of my sons' faces was that moment from above, from heaven, that said, hey, dude, you're saying you don't want to see those guys every day? You don't want to take them to the museum or out to play catch? It's all it took. All it took for me. And like that, I snapped out of it, turned off the car, and my life changed. Everything about my life. I wasn't dating. I wasn't about women or drinking or having fun. It was planning things with my boys, planning things, going the extra drive to pick them up, even though they lived in Iowa City with their mother, doing all of those things, then going to a Cubs game and whatever. Everything was designed around the health and the perspective of nurturing my kids. Jim Mudd, and he'd be embarrassed for me using his name, but I have to. He saw that I was in pain. He did two things. First of all, the guy sent me first class to New York to get in touch with old friends because he knew his creative director was hurting. This is going to make you cry. And then Jim Mudd Jr., he said, hey, Kroeger, we're going to go have dinner at Montage. And I'm there and 6 other guys, people in the community. Not people that I hung out with, but his friends and people that I knew, but people in the community, movers and shakers in the community. And they each went around the room and they said, hey, Kroeger, you know what you mean to us? You're the guy that gets up at the fundraiser and does the thing. You always make me laugh. Hey, I saw you with your kids. It was such a delight to see how happy your children are and how much you love them. Each one of those guys, it was like being Jimmy Stewart in It's a Wonderful Life. And that's the foundation of my rebuilding, were those moments. And so, Nick, I'm now a happily married guy. I have 3 stepkids. They're all off in the world now. My sons are leaving to go to graduate school. Alex is at Drake studying music. He's a prodigy on the piano. And it's a love fest with me and my boys. We're demonstrative. We hug. We say, I love you every time we see each other. And it's genuine and it's sincere. I wish divorce on no one.
Yeah.
But if it happens, it probably had to happen. And if you figure things out and you wire your perspective to what the priority is, my relationship with my kids is better than it's ever been. And it took that. It took that to take my eye off of my own progress, my own career, the money I was making, where I was living, to put it solely on those 2 boys. I've never told that. Well, to add a smile to this, though, I'm probably insufferable to live with, because I truly believe that it is. I tell my kids every day, boys, I'll tell you want to learn how to be productive? I mean, I have a little lesson in morality and in how to be successful every day. And it's so hard for me to
do the advice dad thing.
I do. If they were to sit here, they would roll their eyes and go, yeah, every day he just feels like he has to tell us something. And there are those who say that that's the wrong way to preach. I don't look at it as preaching, but you said it. I need to be the role model. I want my kids to see what success looks like. I don't just mean financial success, life success. I want them to see what a good citizen does, what a good man is, how a good man is part of the community, a good husband.
Let me double down on that, because I still see your kids from time to time. And I'll say, hey, how's your dad doing? Oh, Gary's great. He's this, he's that. They are, when I mention you to, and by the way, like every single one of your kids, you can tell they're your kids. By the way that they carry themselves, how charismatic they are.
Their voices.
They
like, sound just like.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And it's like, me and Gabby are always like,
yeah, that's Kroeger.
That's Kroeger.
You go to the Brown Bottle.
Yeah.
And now both of them are at the Brown Bottle for the summer. So you get a whole Kroeger experience.
Yeah, but they light up when they talk about you, man. And I think that's
what I live for. And
that's the present.
And there's nothing that can take that away. But what happens is when you're me and you have all these life experiences, because I watch my kids make mistakes. And sometimes you can go, well, they'll just figure it out. But then they'll keep repeating these mistakes. So I'll say, well, son, here's what I laid onto my kid the other day. And he rolled his eyes. Because he's having trouble sleeping. True problem. Insomniac. And then you can't get up the next day. When you can't get up the next day, what happens? You might be late for work, or you didn't play tennis in the morning like you planned, or you didn't go to the gym.
Or you didn't execute the way that you wanted to.
It's dominoes.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, do you know how to sleep better? What, Dad? Make your bed. What? Make your bed. Why? Making your bed is the easiest and first thing to do to organize a life. Check it off, because a orderly environment helps you start a more orderly day. It just does. And it's the easiest thing in the world. It's so easy. Oh, that's a pain. I'm just going to sleep in it again and mess up the covers. Why? Well, psychologically, you started your day with a premise of organization. But more than that, and studies will even show you, son, I'm saying, you sleep better. When you get into a messy bed, your brain gets into a messy bed. People sleep better when they pull down the crisply folded sheets and they crawl under the covers. Their body and their mind go, ah. It's just a fact. So try it. And even if you don't fall asleep, etc., it's still the build. If I ever write a book about how to be successful or how to be productive, it's going to be called Make Your Bed.
There's 4 days a month that I don't make my bed. And it's Friday morning. I get up and I go meet Rich on Friday mornings to have coffee. And that's the day that I get out of bed and I'm kind of moving out of the house in a quick fashion, and I leave them for my wife. but every other day I have to do it. It's on me. Like I have to do it, because if I don't, I don't start my day.
It's just a signal to start your day with organization.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying to be fastidious where somebody, I know people who get so upset if something's out of place. No, that's a little bit of mental illness.
Yeah.
It's okay if something's out of place, but everybody wants to walk into a room that's theirs, that they've created, that looks the way they designed it. I didn't choose those pillows and that comforter, or my wife didn't either, because we want it to look like this. We want it to look like this.
Yeah.
And every time you do that, your brain goes, I'm satisfied. I completed something. I accomplished
I can move
something.
on to the next task.
Move on to the next task.
Yeah.
It moves that maintenance aside.
So you would say one of the things to just get through the anxiety of starting the day is to complete a task right away.
Complete a task right away.
Make your bed.
Because it's the easiest thing in the world to be. Being lazy is the easiest thing in the world. It's so easy to put off the dishes. It's so easy to put off.
It's so toxic, though.
It is. It is. It's so easy, but it accumulates. And so my kids have messy rooms. What kid doesn't? But I'm going to keep telling them that this is a habit worth pursuing. It's worth pursuing because it's almost invisible. You've got a messy this. Where's that paper? Where's my pencil? Da 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 da. You get angry. Hey, did you take? It creates so many new problems every day. Give yourself the space. Now, that being said, all you listeners who are taking notes, it's okay to have a little messy space. You go into my office, it's very cluttered, but it's cluttered with my stuff the way I like it. But it's organized, except the desk itself. It's real organized disorganization. I like having, because I've worked hard to have this, I like having my little space that's just crazy. It's like, you think that I've been thinking of this, but it's all coming to me as we sit here. You have a beautiful kitchen. You want to keep your kitchen clean. Your kitchen's clean. Your food's clean. A clean kitchen is important. But if you've got a junk drawer, that's awesome.
I have a junk drawer.
The junk drawer where it's like you could find paper clips to scissors to Scotch tape to a hammer.
A stamp.
75
spare pens that are 3/4 of the way gone of ink.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the junk drawer is the drawer of dreams. You don't know what you're going to find in there. And so, there's a lottery ticket. I mean, it's good to give your body, your mind, your soul a little bit of just this potpourri of unexpectedness. So have a junk drawer in your life.
Yeah.
And organize the rest of it, because you'll maximize the time to get things done.
Yeah.
I can't do anything. And this is the stuff that I preach with my kids. And they go, Dad, shut up. I am trained. I cannot relax until I've accomplished something. So I'll have a day off like today, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my wife will go, what do you want to do? Do you want to just hang out and barbecue? And I go, well, I've got to do yard work first. I have to do something before I feel like I have earned the right to just relax.
You have one of the best lawns in town.
Well, it's an acre. It's an acre. But here's what I tell my kids. And this is, take notes. Every day, move the needle one click.
Yeah.
One click. Read another page of a book. Pick up a new magazine. Read about horses. Do 10 extra push-ups. Move the needle a click a day. And in a month, look at how much more body of evidence of life skill you have. You're going to discover something new that you want to pursue. Look at every day as an opportunity. Don't look at it like, hey, I need to move the needle all the way around, 360 degrees.
Yeah, because that's impossible.
It's impossible. A click. Every day, add something to your arsenal.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Hey, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned in raising sons?
The biggest lesson that I've learned in raising sons is going to sound somewhat contrary to what I just said, because I am always this font of just like, I've learned so much here. Feed off of me. Take some of this. But the biggest lesson is they are their own lives. They've got their own clock. They've got their own wants. They've got their own space. They've got their own beliefs. They've got their own relationships. And yes, I want to give them all the tools that I can, but I also have to just sit back and watch them discover for themselves. And
Ooh.
I can say, because you said it for me, my kids are doing great. Yeah, they could be a little tidier, but they're nice young men. I didn't do that. They did that. What I contributed was you're safe.
Yeah. Fundamental, foundational elements,
Yeah.
if you will.
Yeah, if you will, exactly. Is that's all we can do. We can't lead them, I don't take my son's hand anymore when we go into the parking lot because it get hit by a car.
Yeah.
I've got to understand that, he knows now.
Man, I'm still doing that with Jamie.
Well, Jamie's still a little guy,
We were in Colorado last year, and we were up in like
Pictures
the Rocky
were great.
Mountains.
I wrote to you because you weren't where I used to work in Estes Park.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. You did. And he so there's like big tour buses flying all over the parking lot and stuff. And Jamie just, yeah, of course. So I'm like, dude, no. I want to wrap him in saran wrap sometimes, man.
They don't know physics yet. They don't know that the velocity of a bus is going to, flatten them out. They don't realize that. So you have to take them by the hand. But it's the biggest lesson is that you keep loosening that grip every year. And then you eventually have to trust. My kid drove across country in the dead of winter in his car that he hadn't fixed up to my liking. And I was sweating bullets, and I have to trust that I've provided enough foundation. He's smart. He wants to live.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've done my job. I've planted the seeds, and now they're growing.
Right.
I referenced this one time. You ever heard of the Chinese bamboo tree?
Probably.
Where you got to plant it and then you got to water it for like 5 years and nothing happens.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden it shoots up 90 feet in 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. With kids, that's what it is. Like you don't know if it's sinking in. You don't know all the time, because when you plant a seed in your child, it doesn't grow right away. You know what I mean? He's got to go put himself in a situation where he has to use that seed.
And then remembers, oh yeah, mom, dad told me.
Or forget. And fail. And then be like, oh yeah, that was that lesson they were trying to teach me.
Yeah. Well, that's what it is. And that's the answer to your question, is that you're too young to remember the game Concentration. It was a game show. Yeah, and it was a puzzle. And you'd say B3, and it turn it's half of a couch. And then you'd try to remember where you saw the other side of the couch. And every time you matched, you got the couch or you got the prize, or no matter what, half of a car. And so it was, and then there was a puzzle at the end. Well, that's what life is. It's a big game of concentration. And that's what we get to watch our kids go, oh yeah, dad said that you should fill the oil before the light comes on. It's like they piece these things together. Oh yeah, that cost $1,200 because the engine blew up. They piece these things together and they form their own lives. But you try. You have to give them, forgive me for continuing on this analogy, but you got to give them that half of the couch.
Yeah.
They got to remember what the other half was, but you've got to give them the pieces.
Yeah, the application is going to come at some point, but you have to teach the lesson.
Yes.
And I feel like that's what pulls me into advice dad all the time. Advice dad is dangerous, though.
I know it is.
Man, it's dangerous because there's a fine line between I want to give you all the tools that you need for the rest of your life, and I just need to be empathetic in this moment and be with you.
Yes.
So I don't divide our relationship.
Your kids are still young. Even your oldest is still relatively young.
Yeah.
Here's what, because I do suffer from advice dad, but not insufferably, but more than anybody wants.
To a degree, I think we as parents all do, because that's our way of trying to protect them.
That's our way of trying to protect them. But they may reject it. But I also now see with my boys the light going off. Oh, yeah. I remember when dad kept saying this and kept saying that. It's just, again, it's a process of letting go. It's not our job. We're not puppeteers. They are not marionettes. Our job is not to control them. Our job is to, I'm looking for another metaphor, but our job is simply to look to see if they've got all their strings. I mean,
Yeah.
do they have everything that they need? And can I influence them a little? I will always try to influence my kids until the day I die.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
don't have a choice.
You don't. And no matter what, right, wrong, or indifferent, you're
Right.
trying to teach them how you
Right.
think
And-
because it's done okay
Right.
for you.
And they will resist, and sometimes get mad. But I do believe when you're coming, and this goes to what we first started with, when you're coming from an authentic place, a true place of love, it ultimately shines through.
Yeah.
It ultimately shines through. And we reap the benefits. The bamboo does eventually grow and have new sprouts all over it.
Yeah.
Patience. This is a long game. Life is too short, but at the same time, it's still a long game. Nothing happens overnight.
No, it doesn't. And that's part of life, right? That goes back to what you were saying about, move the ball a click at a time, because you can't change somebody or change anything all the way. You can't go 360 degrees in one day with one lesson.
Right.
You can't. You got to plant the seed, water it, nurture it.
Right. And it's called discipline. And it's called discipline because it isn't easy. Lack of discipline is really easy. Lack of discipline is lazy. Lack of discipline is really easy. We call it discipline because it's hard. It's hard to say, wow, I really hit a wall. I don't want to hit that wall again. It's really hard to wake up on that day when you say, I'm not going to drink anymore.
Yeah. Huh. Just to kind of unpack that a little bit, you get taught all these lessons. Like I went to AA classes and I went to like IOP classes and I had done things over the years because my alcoholism.
You talk about that. You talk about my next. When you mentioned AA in a recent podcast, you said this with my next go around, which told me, oh, you tried that before.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all about the seeds that got planted along the way, right? Like a problem rears its head. Then you say, okay, I'm going to go try to develop the skill. Problem rears its head. You do it again. Right. And it's all repetition. And finally, like, what we try to teach our kids, like they finally learn, they finally find that way. So, but yeah, with alcoholism, it was, really the fear of losing my life and not being able to be a parent anymore, like to anyone, not being able to be a husband anymore,
Well, yeah. And I want to make sure that I didn't contradict myself because it is hard to make that change. But there are moments like I had, like you had, where you go, okay, my son's faces. You remember the day? I remember the day and the place where I saw my son's faces. And I went, being less of myself, God forbid, ending my life, is a betrayal. It's a betrayal of the gifts I've been given, the responsibilities that I have, the good fortune of my life, of having sons. It was a betrayal. And that's where there was enough of inside of me, perhaps from my parents, where you don't betray. That's cardinal sin. You don't betray. You don't twist fate so that it can hurt somebody.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say, I am this person and then not be this person. Because when we present ourselves to someone, there's a contract. This is who I am. Now, if I'm not this, then I'm betraying you. Yeah. And what's the point of that?
Right.
So that's what it was for me, is you don't betray your purpose. And my purpose to this day is to be a father. I'm not discounting what it means to be a husband. I'm not discounting what it means to be a good citizen. I'm not discounting what it means to be a good gardener. But at the top of that pyramid is those boys didn't ask to be here.
Yeah.
They were given to me.
Yeah.
and no matter what the circumstance is, if I don't give them the best of me, then I betrayed them.
Yeah, there was a good one. It says, so you say you'd die for your kids, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But would you live for them? Would you change your life?
There you go.
Would you get sober? Would you become a better person? Would you develop good habits so you could model to them what a man is supposed to look like, or what a parent is supposed to look like? So at some point in their life, when they're given that opportunity, should they be given that opportunity? Should they want that opportunity?
Bingo. And
they have a structure.
And I said that I lived this idyllic childhood, but why did I become this nutball who turned up the car on in the garage? My parents didn't raise that.
Right.
Well, we don't know what's going to happen to our kids. We don't know. My dad passed away years and years previous, but what he gave me was that integrity to reach down deep when things were bad. He was one of the most moral, honest human beings I've ever known. Didn't have a parking ticket. I mean, he was ridiculous to that extreme. An absolute conservative. Never was a penny in debt. But he gave me this foundation of, hey, you are a father. You are a man. And I'm not being gender specific here. I'm a man, so I can only speak of being a man.
Sure.
I'm a father. I can only speak of being a father. I'm not diminishing a woman or a mother or anything.
Right.
But my job isn't to be a role model as a mother. It's to be a role model as a father.
Yeah.
And I believe that comes with certain tenets. I believe that everything comes with certain skill sets. My wife and I, she inherited my kids, and it's a wonderful love fest of a relationship, but she doesn't try to do the things that I try to do. She's not a preacher like I am. She's not really a community involved person the way I am.
Right.
But she inspires them to improve their minds, always improve their hearts. And that's the role that she's taken on as a mother. I feel that it's my job to show my boys what it's like. We talked about it. I'm repeating myself, what it's like to be a good man.
But I think that's the most important thing the most important thing that you can do as a father is to model well. Right.
Yes. Right.
And sometimes that's putting the cell phone down and playing toys on the floor. Sometimes that's putting the cell phone down and going to practice or going out and playing ball with them.
You just nailed a memory again for me.
Okay.
Because I'm trying to capsulize my father. My father was an engineer at John Deere, and one of the original engineers, when engineers either went into NASA, built cars, or John Deere tractors, right? One of the pencil pushers with a slide rule. Top of the game, PEC here in Waterloo. Always busy, always homework to take home. He was programming the computers to build engines for tractors. My dad was brilliant. But if I had any trouble with my homework, ever, put it all aside and take as much time as he needed to help his son.
Yeah.
Nothing was more important than, my kid's struggling with algebra.
Yeah.
And I'm going to help him with it. And he used to do so much. I go, hey, Dad, can you show your work on the page? Because that's what's doing it. And he would just do it all. And so here's the funny side of it. I would get A's, and I'm an idiot in math.
Me too.
But my dad would do the work. He'd show it on the page, so it looked like it was all spontaneous. Hand in my paper, and I got A's. Now, he was enabling but he wasn't trying to enable me. He was trying to, because he would explain, well, son, you don't have to carry this over here, and blah, 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 second power.
And that was Chinese to you.
Absolutely, it was Chinese.
Yeah.
But he was trying to give me what he had. But that's the model for me. I try to give my sons what I have to help facilitate them. Not give them, but facilitate them.
Yeah. Algebra sucks, man.
Yeah.
You threw me into like a time warp back to like a 9th grade algebra class, and I'm just sitting there. You're like, carry this and this, and I was like, Mr. Armstrong back at Columbus High School in 9th grade was probably like, this kid does not give two shits about algebra, but I didn't understand it, man. Like I just did not. It was not the way my brain.
My brother's a nuclear physicist. I skated through science and math in school because everybody knew my dad was an engineer and my brother was a genius. He's a doctorate from University of Chicago in physics. He works for NASA. They knew that my brother was so smart. I can remember in class teachers going, well, Gary Kroeger, we know that you know the answer.
Oh, good genes.
I had no idea what the answer was. I just knew that I'd get help at home and then bring in the paper and, you work the system as well as you can.
Yeah.
Maybe that was my life lesson. There you go. You work it to your advantage. I freak. I like having a nice yard and I like cars. You and I were in the car business.
Yep.
And so I never buy a new car. I always let somebody else buy the amortize the thing and I buy a used car. So I have nice used cars. But I found my son a barn find of a 2012 Mustang. It's freaking gorgeous. And I bought it relatively low price, but cleaned it out, fixed it up, et cetera, and I gave it to him. But I didn't give it to him. He's working it off. So this summer, my kid has to make money for college, a certain amount of money, and he's got to at least pay off a third of this car and then over the next few years. So I'm not giving him anything, but I'm trying to teach him. I'm trying to show him the responsibility of paying bills.
You're trying to model it for him.
I'm trying to model it for him because ultimately that is also what we do. It's like there is a world out there that has systems. You don't just get to drive willy-nilly. You don't just go to take money out of the bank if you don't have it in. There's all sorts of systems.
Right.
And to just go, okay, kid, figure it out, then we're not doing our job. We have to teach them as best as we can to navigate these systems, to work them, not to work them to your advantage, but to make sure that you aren't disadvantaged by not knowing the systems.
Right.
So I'm trying to teach them, hey, you got to pay bills. And dad expects that on the first of the month, just like the bank.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I'm working with my adult children on understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. That's important that they get that, man. And as a father of my oldest is 21 years old right now. I mean, I've had several financial conversations with him, but he seems, at least he conveys to me that he's got it under control. He knows what he's doing for the most part.
Yeah, okay.
And sometimes I'm like, oh, is he telling me the truth?
I know.
But he should, I probably did that to my dad. I probably still do. Like, I'm fine. I got this. I'm good. I don't need your help. Stay out of my business.
See, do you know why government exists?
No.
Because human beings have the capacity to lie.
Yeah.
So we have all of these rules and
posture.
regulations because we have the capacity to not tell the truth. And kids figure that out too. Say this, stay out of trouble. Pretend to be this, stay out of trouble. Now that's hard for a parent to navigate because we don't know. Did you da-da-da-da-da? Whether it's drugs or alcohol? No. No. We don't know the truth. So this is a balance that I'm always trying to figure out is what do I need to know? What don't I know? What's true? I try to accept everything as the truth, as I would present it as the truth. I wouldn't like to think that my kids would lie to me, but I can remember when my son was a baby and the light switches had plugs in them, right? Because little kids like to stick things in there like paper clips, right? Yeah. Plugged up. And my son was playing at one of them. And I said, hey, get away from there. And I saw his brain say this, Dad can't read my mind. He didn't even have words yet, but I saw him in his actions realize I can say or do, he doesn't know. But that was a transformative moment for me realizing, okay, we all figure out, you can't read my mind.
Yeah.
So it's the capacity to BS, it's the capacity to lie, but ultimately, that's the toxin in human beings.
You know how I've learned to combat that? Communicate more.
Yeah.
Talk more. But, and I've talked about this before too, but I think that, as parents, the thing that I want the most out of my children is to communicate with them, to talk with them, for them to share with me what's going on in their brain so I can understand them more holistically.
Yeah, good.
Because if we, and it's so easy to do, and I've fallen to this so many times when, you know, the kid wants you to play with them and you're like, and you're doing, and you model something else, right? You're on Facebook, you're typing up a post, right? You got something that you want to share to the world instead of spend some time with your kid. Right. And he's like, hey man, you really gotta put it down. You gotta take a step back and communicate with them and understand where they're at, because that's going to bear so much fruit for you. Because
that's my takeaway today. And I'm good at communicating. I'm called an over communicator by everybody in politics, whatever. People, Kroeger, you share too much. But in realizing that is a building block in raising a family, I think that's an important aha moment for me. Is one of the things is also, I think, is to be demonstrative. In other words, I hug, I touch. I think human beings are supposed to. Now, there's new rules in the world. I can't just go hug anybody at the grocery store anymore.
Yeah. They get a little freaked out by that.
Yeah. And I understand. You know, people are afraid. We are more afraid than we've ever been. So people have space, and we need to respect that space. But when it comes to my kids, when they have girlfriends, and I go to see my kid in college and he's with his girlfriend, and I give him a big hug and I say, I love you. Invariably, my son will say, I love you so much, Dad.
Oh.
And that's another cry moment, because that's not easy for everybody to do. And it's not easy for every teenage boy to do. I love you, Dad. Because it's, you know, that's not as common as it should be. But that's communication. I love you, and I will always tell you I love you, and I always get it back. And it is so sincere. And my kids don't care if they look soft in front of their girlfriends. I love you, Dad. Oh, I get goosebumps.
Yeah, me too. Because that's at the end of the day, that's the stigma that we got to get away from, right?
Yes.
Because it is. When I've said it before so many times, but we are hardwired as men, and depending on how your father modeled to you, or how life was modeled to you from your parents' standpoint, but to suck it up and deal with it, right? To be hard, to be a man about it. And it's for you to say that, hey, my kids are over here saying, I love you so much, Dad. Like outwardly,
yeah,
man, publicly,
yeah,
that's a huge win, Gary.
It is.
And that is the fruit that is bearing because of the way that you raised your children.
It is. And I believe, Nick, and you're doing it too, our responsibility, because I look, what am I, 67? 30 years from now, I'll be in a wheelchair and you'll be feeding me through a straw, right? Hopefully I'm still around. But eventually we do move on. And the kids got another 50 years down here or something, right?
Right.
Our job is to nurture a new way of thinking, is a better world, and give our kids the opportunity to live in that better world. And now, people will fight over politics till the cows come home. We'll never line up that way. But here's where we can line up. We can line up on redefining what a man is, what a woman, and again, I'm not trying to be flippant by saying, or anything in between. However you identify, we can make this I keep using the word demonstrative, we can make this a more affectionate society. Look, Nick, I'd be lying to you if I didn't think, I'm not a big guy, but I think I'm a pretty tough guy. I'm good at sports. I was a track star.
Yep.
And I'm real proud of my accomplishments. And I chalk it up to, hey, I'm a proud man. I love when my wife says, oh, you, forgive me, honey, turn me on. Right? I feel like a man.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like less of a man because I hug and I tell my kids I love them, because I cry. But societally speaking, over the course of generations, you said it, we've been taught to be tough, that a man doesn't do this. We need to redefine masculinity.
Yeah.
I think we can redefine femininity, because the roles have been changing. They have changed so dramatically in my lifetime, from ERA to Virginia Slims to whatever society is trying to create, to expand our understanding of each other. We've got a lot of conflicts going on. I mean, we don't need to go into it. There's a lot of conflicts. But part of this journey for us is, look, hey, dude, you work out. You are a good-looking man, and I know Gabby thinks you're a good-looking man, and I'll bet your son's looking at her. That's a damn fine-looking man. But the fact that we can have this conversation, which is very vulnerable, and I've seen how vulnerable you are when I've shared some personal things, and you did the same for me. This is where we need to go.
Yeah,
this is where we need to go.
Yeah. Because I had a very similar moment to the one that you had experienced, with where I was with my mental health in the trajectory I was going. I was, I had thought to end my life as well, because my kids would be better off without me here. My wife would be better off without me here. Nobody needs me to do my job, right? Like my what I felt was very small. And that was a lot because of addiction, right? Like that was,
it's a depressant over
time.
Yeah.
Like, so mental health symptoms are a symptom of addiction, right? At some point, but you get to a point like that. And if you don't have, if you have not been, because you got somebody instilled in you at some point to reach out for help, to think about what your life is worth to other people, to flip the script on that stuff. What we need to do as men is break the stigma around guys reaching out for help to get their lives on track, right? Because if we go off the rails, we cannot model for our children well. We cannot parent well, right? So what do we got to do to say, man, I need, give me a hand. How do I get a hand here? And for you, it was Jim Mudd,
Yeah.
For you, it was, and whether he saw it or you talked about it or not, he knew it, but you threw a hand out at some point, whether that was literally or metaphorically, you threw something out there that was like, hey man, I need a little help. And that's what we need to be doing for each other is looking for hands for guys that need help, opposed to saying, hey, suck it up.
Yeah. Man up.
Man up. No, man. No, we're going to lose people that way. And we're going to, and kids are going to lose their fathers that way. And then those kids are going to be lost that way.
Wow. You could not have said it more perfectly. That was amazing. That was truly amazing. That's exact. And you know how you do it? Again, we can't just turn the knob and everybody suddenly understands. You do shows like this. You share them. We have conversations. We show our children. We communicate. I mean, again, I said, let's not talk politics, and I keep going back to politics, but I just mean in the biggest ways. When I ran for office, I ran for Congress, then I ran for the State House, and I lost, but I was overwhelmed by trying to fix it all. I wanted to go to Congress. We need to fix, all sorts of things. Our finances, our foreign policy. We need to fix all of these things. And it was overwhelming. And then more and more, I realized maybe it's best to just fix this town. Maybe it's best to fix the potholes and access to schools. Maybe even closer, my home. Maybe my home, metaphorically and literally, as a model for how things work. And then it branches out. I just started not thinking smaller, but thinking more effectively. What can I do? Without waiting. I'm many things. One of them is incredibly impatient. That's why I'm a mansplainer. That's why it's like, I know I should wait and watch and wait for the bamboo, but I'm an impatient. I was given.
What results? I want them now.
Yes. I was given this chemistry that just come on, I can't do nothing. But I can't change the world today, but I can go a click. This made my day. I can't wait till you put it on the air, and I'm going to put it all over social media, and I've got a bunch of followers, and I want politicians. I want, we moved it a click.
Yeah.
And then another click. Well, that's a really good day, Nick. That's a really good day.
Yeah.
And I got two boys at home. One's online in a gaming tournament, and they both work at Brown Bottle tonight. And my wife and I will go in and proudly watch these tall, handsome gentlemen take care of customers. And that's a win, man.
Yeah, it is.
That's a win.
Yeah. You get to be here and be present and watch it.
And you get to too, I mean, again, and I know it sounds like this love fest now, but I've watched you turn this corner.
Yeah.
There is one time when I had a barbecue at my house. Do you remember?
Yeah. Kroegfest.
Yeah. You were a little off the rails then. You drove away angry.
Did I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing that, and I shouldn't go. But look, I saw the darker side for a moment. You healed. And Gabby helped you heal.
Yeah.
And your kids helped you heal. And now you're a font of giving. And
it's so easy for us to fall down, Gary.
Yeah.
The world does not make it difficult to fail. And it will almost root for you to fail. But we need to create a community in which we're rooting for something different.
Yeah.
And that's, at the end of the day, I think what me and you are both trying to do is create a community that is here for each other.
That's correct.
Well,
we said it earlier. We're almost taught to fail. We're taught to be angry. We're taught to be upset. We're taught to have conflict. We're taught that rather than say, wow, that was a beautiful thing that you just said, we're taught to think, what was he wrong about? We're taught to have conflict. We're seeing it in politics. We're seeing it in social media. And now we have all these instruments to have conflict that only create more conflict. I mean, we are at a precarious time. We really are, because of all of the media, all of the information or disinformation sources that are out there stoking the fires of conflict. Apparently there's money in conflict. Of course there is.
Yeah. You pick up your phone and there's conflict.
Yeah. I've turned it off for that reason, because I will get 1,000 reasons to be mad today.
Yeah.
And I don't choose to. I'm going to go,
Yeah. I don't choose to. That's the key.
That's what it is.
I don't choose to. Yeah. Choice, man.
Yeah.
We all have a choice.
And I think it's possible to always see the good choice.
Yes.
It's not easy, but it's possible. You just have information, communication. The more information you have that you can trust, that's not tainted it's hard to know. But I know when you look me in the eye and you tell these stories, or when you listen to me, that we were sharing real information.
Yeah.
I can take anything from this last hour and understand, okay, that there was truth that happened here.
Yep.
Yeah. Somebody else's take on this. Look, you'll post it and somebody, it's Kroeger, I hate him, or whatever.
Somebody's going to throw a dart somewhere.
Somebody will throw a dart. But does that change what happened here? No. Is it going to ruin my day?
No. And it's not the ones that want to listen and have a bad opinion of it. It's the ones that, you know what, it meant something to me.
Right.
Yeah.
And people who are looking for truth, who are looking for change, who are looking for a better world, they're going to see the positive aspects of the things that we talk about, even things that they disagree with. Who knows? Could be a million things. But because I like putting nice bows on everything, we had an authentic hour. And that's what it has to be, is authentic.
Yeah.
Were you real? Did we create any shields? No, we broke some down.
Yep.
There you have it.
Yeah.
And the coffee was good.
Yeah. Those are good.
Really good coffee.
That was a Mother's Day gift for Gabby 2 years ago, and she really wanted that. So that was those are good coffees.
Yeah.
Get yourself a Nespresso.
Is that what it is?
That's that George Clooney.
That's the Clooney deal.
Yeah, that's the Clooney
He's making
deal.
a lot of money off that. We don't need to make him richer, do we? It's a quality product. Why not?
Yeah. Well, I'm here for it. So, hey, what's your before we go, I always ask, what's your favorite part of being a father?
What's my favorite part of being a father? Again, it's another big one because there's so many things. My favorite part of being a father is when I hear in conversation or overhear my kids creating their own ideas and their own thoughts. Sometimes they're in consort with mine or my wife's, and sometimes they're absolutely original. But I know that the matrix of their brains created something for them. And when I hear their ideas about people, social issues, and I know that they found these themselves, maybe with some of the tools I've helped them with.
Yeah.
That's when I go, wow, they're people. They're separate people.
They're human
and I can't
beings.
read their minds.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. One more thing. Be the advice dad for me. If somebody was listening who was struggling with their mental health, was struggling with something in their life as a man, what advice would you give them?
Well, there are hotlines. They're struggling. Well, the world of struggling on this side is always suicide.
Yeah.
It's there.
There's a spectrum, and that's the end.
There's a spectrum, and there's there. And even if you're here and you're, oh, that can't be me. No, you're still moving toward this point of no return. You have to seek help. There are counselors. There are therapists. They're there. There are hotlines. Those are tools to use immediately. But you must find that friend or that mate that you can talk to and be vulnerable and have an authentic conversation, and do not submerge the dark thoughts.
Yeah.
The dark thoughts will stay dark until you put them in the light. That's go to the light, man. Go to the light. And you can't do this tomorrow. You've got to move. You've got to start the motion towards your mental health. There are lots of things out there. I mean, I've been on antidepressants in my life. I don't like them, and I'm not taking them now, and I'm glad. But at the same time, it's a tool that can help a therapist, can help a doctor to help you. There are options that you have to explore right away. But the first thing is never wait. Call somebody up, show up at their house, say, buddy, I got to talk. Most people are going to be just like us. Call me whenever, man. Call me whenever. 3 a.m. I'll put the phone next to the bed. Call me whenever. What do you need? You're too important. But don't submerge.
Yeah.
It will come it'll be the bad bamboo that comes to fruition.
Yeah. Or it just won't.
Right. Yeah.
And the world there's a bright future for you here.
I've known kids, my son went through a bad time with a girlfriend and broke up, and he was so sad. I said, I know the darkness is dark, the weeds are thick, but there comes a day when the sun is coming through the kitchen window and you're caught by the rapture of it. And you think to yourself, why do I feel so good? I'm supposed to feel crappy, but I don't. That day happens when the pain transforms. The sun will come through that window again, and you will feel the warmth of it. You got to know that day is out there. You've got to know.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It is.
Yeah.
It is. I'll share a quick anecdote here. I remember when I was a kid, it was Saturday morning, and I had Ninja Turtles, and I had like this new Secret of the Ooze like layer, right? Like, and I was playing with them on my front porch, and it was sunny outside, and my mom was making pancakes inside. I couldn't have been more than 10 years old, but in that moment I was happy. And there are moments like that you can give to your children at some point, and that will fill your cup. So just
yes, and you can give them to yourself.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm not saying don't get the therapy right away, knowing the morning comes. Get the therapy, because you're going to have a more solid foundation to not go to that dark place again.
Yep.
Because otherwise, life has all sorts of. You lose a job, you lose a marriage, you lose a girlfriend, you lose a boyfriend, whatever. Throw a hand out. Use the help. Find that lifeline. They're there, but also realize in your heart, in your soul, find that connection. Find that connection where the universe is going to align one morning, and the sun's going to come through the window, and you're going to go, wow, it's great to be alive. That day is out there, and there can be many. I know we have to go. I don't have a lot of bad days anymore. I don't. Not because everything's working out and perfect. I could use a little more retirement money. I was forced retired and I wasn't ready for it. There are issues, but I don't ever have a darkness where I think, oh, I don't want to be here. There's no hope or no salvation. I just always know that sun comes through the window.
Yeah. Yep. And if you get to a dark place, throw a hand out.
Yep.
There's resources out there.
And look, there's religion. There are people who aren't religious, and they need to know that sunshine comes from the universe as well.
Yeah, that's for them.
Yes. And so the ways to find help exist, but you got to go get them.
Yep. Amen. Cool.
Man, this has been fun.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, my pleasure, man.
All right, brother. See ya. If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, I want to thank you with all my heart. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It really helps us out. If you have questions about getting sober, parenting, or personal growth, email Nick at domesticdadproject.com with any questions about cleaning up the messes you've made. And if your question is discussion worthy, we'll feature it in an upcoming episode. Don't forget, you can watch any of these videos uncut and unedited, filmed in my studio from our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search for Domestic Dad Project. Also, please follow us on Facebook or share this episode on your social media. You can also join our community by grabbing some merch. It means the world to me to know that this podcast is making a difference in someone's life. And if this episode inspired you to get sober or simply become a better version of yourself, you can claim your free 60-minute coaching session by visiting www.domesticdadproject.com. Let's continue supporting each other to break the stigma around dads reaching out for help to get our lives on track while navigating the obstacles of fatherhood. Until next time, keep cleaning up the mess.